The blinding beam of a high-powered flashlight pierced the pitch-black tunnel as the elite Mossad agent crept forward, his weapon raised and eyes alert. Osama bin Laden was just meters away, the most wanted terrorist in the world, and the agency had spent years tracking his every move. This was their best chance yet to apprehend the al-Qaeda leader and bring him to justice. The agent's heart pounded in his ears as he advanced, his finger poised on the trigger. A single shot could end the manhunt and avenge the thousands murdered on 9/11. But the higher-ups had been clear. Bin Laden was to be captured alive if possible, to face trial and reveal the inner workings of his terrorist network. Holding his breath, the agent rounded the corner and found an empty room. Bin Laden had vanished, leaving only a trail of boot prints in the dust. Cursing under his breath, the agent radioed for backup, knowing they had lost their golden opportunity. What the agency didn't know was that their target had been tipped off by one of their own. Halfway across the world, the real traitor sat alone in a darkened safe house, a satisfied smile on his face. He had been feeding Mossad false intelligence for years, steering them away from bin Laden's true hideouts and allowing the terrorist leader to remain one step ahead. It was a calculated game of cat and mouse, with lives hanging in the balance. As Mossad regrouped and reevaluated their strategy, the traitor continued to manipulate the agency, convinced that keeping bin Laden free was crucial to his own agenda. He had his reasons, buried deep in a past filled with broken promises and shattered loyalties. The stakes had never been higher, with the fate of nations resting on the hunter becoming the hunted. Time was running out, and Mossad knew it. Bin Laden was planning his next major attack, one that could dwarf the devastation of 9/11. The agency had to find him, and fast, even if it meant making difficult choices and crossing ethical lines. The future of Israel, and perhaps the world, hung in the balance. In the end, it would come down to a test of wills, with Mossad's finest pitted against a ruthless adversary who had managed to stay one step ahead for far too long. The outcome would determine the course of history, and whether justice would finally be served, or whether the most wanted man on the planet would continue to evade capture, his reign of terror unbroken. Osama bin Laden, the most wanted man in the world. The Mossad agent's frustrated curse echoed through the empty tunnel as he radioed for backup. Bin Laden had slipped through their fingers once again, disappearing into the shadows like a specter. But the stakes had never been higher. This was no longer just about avenging the horrors of 9/11. Across the globe, al-Qaeda was metastasizing, its tentacles spreading from the Middle East to Africa, Asia, and even Europe.
Bin Laden had become the charismatic rallying figure for a growing network of Islamist extremists, his calls for jihad resonating with disaffected young men seeking purpose and a cause. Under his leadership, al-Qaeda had carried out attacks from Bali to Madrid, sowing fear and chaos in the hearts of the West. For the Mossad, bin Laden's capture had become an obsession, a make-or-break mission that could tip the balance in the global war on terror. Israel, ever vigilant against the threat of Islamic radicalism, knew that a free bin Laden posed an existential danger. If he was allowed to continue planning and directing operations, the consequences could be catastrophic. A dirty bomb in Tel Aviv, a biological attack in Jerusalem, or worse. The Mossad had spent years trying to track bin Laden's movements, piecing together a complex web of intelligence from sources across the Middle East. They had come tantalizingly close on numerous occasions, only to have their target slip through their grasp. Bin Laden was a master of evasion, constantly on the move and surrounded by a loyal cadre of bodyguards and confidants. But this time, the Mossad believed, they had the upper hand. A high-ranking mole within al-Qaeda's inner circle had been providing invaluable information, painting a detailed picture of bin Laden's latest hideout and the operational plans for his next attack. It was a risk, to be sure. The mole's cover could be blown at any moment with dire consequences, but the potential reward was worth the gamble. As the Mossad agents regrouped and formulated their strategy, the gravity of the situation weighed heavily on their minds. Bin Laden's next strike could be the one that finally shattered the fragile peace, plunging the world into a spiral of retaliatory violence and open war. The fate of nations hung in the balance, with Israel's security and the global balance of power at stake. As the agents made their final preparations, the traitor in the Mossad's ranks sat back and watched, secure in the knowledge that his own sinister agenda would soon be realized. Bin Laden's capture was the last thing he wanted, for if the terrorist leader fell, his carefully constructed web of deceit and manipulation would unravel, exposing the truth that he had worked so hard to conceal. The stage was set for a confrontation that would echo through the ages, a clash of titans with the future of the world hanging in the balance. The hunters had become the hunted, and the price of failure was too high to contemplate. The Mossad commander scanned the mission briefing one last time, his brow furrowed with a mix of determination and trepidation. This was the moment of truth, the culmination of years of relentless pursuit. With a resolute nod, he turned to his elite team of operatives. "Remember, we need bin Laden alive. The intelligence he can provide is invaluable, but if he resists, use lethal force only as a last resort. Our priority is to take him into custody, no matter what." The team listened intently, their expressions impassive as they committed the details to memory. Time was of the essence. Bin Laden's hideout was deeply hidden, and the window of opportunity was narrow. The first phase of the operation was deceptively simple. Under the guise of ordinary tourists, the agents spread out across the bustling city, their false identities impeccably crafted. A middle-aged American couple checked into a modest hotel, their suitcases filled with an array of high-tech surveillance ointment. A young Moroccan woman visited a local salon, emerging with a new hairstyle and hijab. A wealthy Indian businessman booked a table at the city's most exclusive restaurant. Each agent had a specific role to play, their movements choreographed with military precision. Through a series of carefully timed signals and coded exchanges, they established a network of eyes and ears, monitoring bin Laden's compound from multiple vantage points. The key to their success lay in the meticulous attention to detail. Microphones were expertly concealed in the lining of purses and briefcases, while miniature cameras captured every angle of the target's comings and goings. Specialized software analyzed the intercepted chatter, mapping out the compound's security protocols and the daily routines of bin Laden's entourage. As the hours ticked by, the agents maintained their cover, blending seamlessly into the fabric of the city. A chance encounter at a local marketplace, a casual conversation over tea. Each interaction was a carefully rehearsed performance, designed to deflect suspicion and maintain the illusion of normalcy. Meanwhile, the command center buzzed with activity. Analysts pored over the incoming intelligence, refining the strike plan with every new piece of information.
Communication channels were secured, extraction routes were mapped, and contingencies were planned for every possible scenario. The moment of execution finally arrived, and the agents sprang into action. The American couple, their suitcases packed with specialized assault gear, hailed a taxi and made their way to the compound's outer perimeter. The Moroccan woman, her face hidden behind a veil, discreetly entered the neighboring building, her camera-laden hijab offering a bird's-eye view of the target. At the same time, the Indian businessman hosted a lavish dinner party, his guests unknowingly providing cover for a team of snipers positioned on the rooftop. Across the city, every member of the Mossad operation was in place, their roles interwoven like the strands of a spider's web. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the team received the final go-ahead. The American couple, now dressed in the uniforms of local security guards, approached the compound's main gate, their weapons concealed beneath their bulky uniforms. With a few well-rehearsed gestures and a convincing display of authority, they gained entry, slipping past the unsuspecting guards. Inside the compound, the Moroccan woman's camera feed relayed a clear path to bin Laden's hideout, while the snipers on the neighboring rooftop maintained a watchful vigil. The Mossad commander, his heart pounding in his chest, gripped the radio handset, his finger poised to give the order. The stage was set, the trap meticulously laid. All that remained was the final decisive strike. The Mossad had spent years hunting their elusive prey, and now, with bin Laden's capture within their grasp, the future of the world hung in the balance. The Mossad commander's finger tightened on the radio handset as he gave the order. "Move in. I repeat, move in." Adrenaline surging, the two agents posing as security guards advanced swiftly through the compound, weapons raised and eyes alert. Their hearts pounded in their ears as they approached the heavily fortified entrance to bin Laden's hideout, knowing that the most wanted man in the world lay just beyond. With a nod, one agent placed a small explosive charge on the reinforced door, then dove for cover as it detonated in a thunderous blast. Debris and shrapnel rained down,
and the agents rushed through the smoking breach, weapons at the ready. Inside, bin Laden's trusted bodyguards scrambled for their guns, but the Mossad operatives were faster, cutting them down with surgical precision. The sound of the firefight echoed through the shadowy corridors as the agents methodically cleared each room, moving with the discipline of a well-oiled machine. Rounding a corner, the lead agent spotted his target, Osama bin Laden himself, crouched behind an overturned table, desperately trying to reach for an assault rifle. Without hesitation, the agent fired a single shot, the tranquilizer round striking the terrorist leader in the shoulder.
Bin Laden let out a strangled cry and collapsed, his limbs going limp as the potent sedative took effect. The agent approached cautiously, his weapon trained on the prone figure, waiting for any signs of resistance. But bin Laden lay motionless, his eyes glazed and unfocused, all the fight drained from him. "Target acquired," the agent reported into his radio, his voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through his veins. "Repeat, target acquired, requesting immediate extraction." Within minutes, a specialized medical team stormed the compound, securing bin Laden and preparing him for transport. The Mossad commander watched the operation unfold on the video feed, his expression a mask of grim determination. "Get him out of here," he ordered, his tone brooking no argument, "and make sure he's alive and coherent when we interrogate him." As the medical team whisked bin Laden away, the Mossad agents swept the compound, securing any evidence and eliminating any remaining threats. The operation had been a resounding success, with not a single casualty on their side. But the commander knew that the true test was yet to come. Bin Laden's capture was only the first step in a much larger battle, one that would determine the course of the war on terror for years to come. With bin Laden in their custody, the Mossad would finally have the opportunity to unravel the intricate web of al-Qaeda's operations, to dismantle the organization from the inside out. The intelligence they gleaned from their interrogation could be the key to preventing countless future atrocities, to safeguarding the lives of innocent civilians around the world. Yet the commander couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something wasn't right. The ease with which they had infiltrated the compound, the lack of any significant resistance, it all felt too convenient, too perfect. A chill ran down his spine as he considered the possibility that they had been played, that this was all part of a larger, more sinister plan. As the extraction team departed, the commander turned to his second-in-command, his voice laced with concern. "Have the analysts comb through every scrap of intel we've gathered. I want to know if there's anything we're missing, any loose ends that could come back to haunt us." The deputy nodded, his own brow furrowed in apprehension. "You think this was too easy?" The commander's gaze hardened. "I don't know, but I've got a bad feeling about this. We need to be prepared for anything." With that, he turned and strode away, his mind racing as he contemplated the implications of bin Laden's capture. The fate of nations hung in the balance, and the Mossad cannot afford to make a single mistake. Not this time. The operation had been a triumph, but the true battle was only just beginning. The Mossad commander's unease only deepened as the extraction team whisked bin Laden away. Something about the capture felt too easy, too smooth, as if the notorious al-Qaeda leader had willingly allowed himself to be taken. Back at the command center, the analysts worked furiously, scouring every scrap of intelligence for any sign of deception. The video feeds, the intercepted communications, the physical evidence gathered from the compound, nothing seemed amiss. Bin Laden had been caught completely off guard, his defenses breached with ruthless efficiency. And yet, the nagging doubt persisted. The commander paced the room, his brow furrowed in concentration as the team reported their findings. "Sir, everything checks out. The intel was solid, the operation was executed flawlessly. There's no indication that bin Laden had any advance warning or that he was tipped off." The commander nodded, his lips pressed into a thin line. "And the compound? Any sign of a larger network or additional hideouts?" "Nothing conclusive," the analyst replied, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "The compound appears to be an isolated safe house, with no obvious connections to other al-Qaeda cells or operations. It was well fortified, but not part of any larger infrastructure." The commander's jaw tightened. Then where the hell was his backup? Bin Laden's known for his paranoia and his layers of security. For him to be caught this off guard, it just doesn't add up. The analyst hesitated, her eyes darting to the side. "Sir, there is one anomaly we're still investigating. One of the dead bodyguards, his weapon, a Russian-made assault rifle, appears to have been modified with a custom silencer. It's the kind of modification you'd expect from a professional assassin, not a run-of-the-mill security detail." The commander's eyes narrowed. A professional assassin? Hired by whom? "That's the million-dollar question," the analyst said, her expression grim. "We're running forensics on the weapon, but it's possible that bin Laden had a mole within his own ranks, someone feeding him intelligence and tipping him off to our operations." The commander's blood ran cold. If there was a traitor in their midst, someone with intimate knowledge of Mossad's tactics and intel-gathering capabilities, then the entire operation had been compromised from the start. Bin Laden's capture could be nothing more than an elaborate ruse, a calculated move to lull the agency into a false sense of security. "Get Bin Laden on the line," the commander ordered, his voice sharp. "I want to speak with him myself. Find out what he knows." Moments later, the video feed flickered to life, revealing the terrorist leader restrained on a gurney, his eyes half-lidded but alert. The commander leaned forward, his expression unreadable. "Bin Laden, this is Mossad. You've been a difficult man to find, but it seems your luck has finally run out." The terrorist's lips curled into a slow, unsettling smile.
You think you've won, don't you? That by capturing me, you've dealt a crippling blow to Al-Qaeda? The commander's jaw tightened. That's the idea, yes. Now I want you to tell me everything you know about the mole in your organization. Who's been feeding you information, Bin Laden? Bin Laden's laughter echoed through the command center, sending a chill down the spines of the gathered agents. You've played right into my hands, haven't you? The mole is closer than you think, my friend. Closer than you could ever imagine. The commander's eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? Why, the mole is one of your own, Bin Laden replied, his voice dripping with malice. Someone you've trusted implicitly, someone who's been manipulating you for years. And now, with me in your custody, he holds all the cards. The commander's heart pounded in his chest as the implication sank in. If Bin Laden was telling the truth, then the Mossad had been betrayed from within, their entire operation compromised by a traitor in their own ranks. The future of Israel and perhaps the world now hung in the balance. As the agents scrambled to uncover the truth, Bin Laden's laughter echoed through the room, a chilling reminder that the war on terror was far from over. The hunter had become the hunted, and the stakes had never been higher. The final showdown was about to begin. The Mossad commander's blood ran cold as Bin Laden's chilling words echoed through the command center. If the terrorist was to be believed, then the agency had been betrayed from within. A mole, someone they had trusted implicitly, had been manipulating them for years, steering them away from Bin Laden's true hideouts and feeding the infamous Al-Qaeda leader a steady stream of false intelligence. The commander's mind raced as he considered the implications. With Bin Laden in their custody, this supposed traitor now held all the cards, their carefully laid plans exposed and vulnerable. The future of Israel and perhaps the world hung in the balance. "Find him," the commander growled, his fists clenched at his sides. "I want the name of the mole and I want him brought in, now." The analysts sprang into action, scouring every scrap of data, every communication log, every personnel file, desperately searching for any clue that could lead them to the elusive traitor. Time was of the essence. If Bin Laden's claim was true, then the mole could already be moving to cover his tracks, or worse, to enact some final, devastating plan. As the frantic search unfolded, the commander turned his attention back to the video feed, locking eyes with the smirking terrorist leader. "What are you playing at, Bin Laden? What's your endgame?" The terrorist's smile widened. "Don't you see, my friend? I've won. Your precious Mossad has been undermined from within, and now the true architect of my freedom stands poised to strike. You've walked right into his trap, and soon the world will tremble at the consequences." The commander's jaw tightened. "You're bluffing. There's no way you could have orchestrated all of this from your hideout." Bin Laden's eyes gleamed with malicious triumph. "Am I? Tell me, how did you find me so easily this time? How did you manage to infiltrate my compound with such precision when I've eluded you for years?" The commander's mind raced, the pieces slowly falling into place. The ease of the operation, the lack of resistance, the modified weapon, it all pointed to a deeper, more sinister plot. Bin Laden had known they were coming, had allowed himself to be captured as part of some larger scheme. "You son of a bitch," the commander breathed, the realization dawning on him. "You wanted us to find you. This was all a setup, wasn't it?" Bin Laden's laughter echoed through the room. "Precisely. And now, the final phase of my plan is about to unfold. Your mole will strike, and when he does, the world will tremble." The commander's stomach twisted with dread as the gravity of the situation sank in.
If bin Laden was telling the truth, if there was a traitor in their midst, then the Mossad's entire operation had been compromised from the start. The lives of millions hung in the balance, and the agency had walked right into the trap. Suddenly, a frantic voice crackled over the radio. "Sir, we've got a situation. The extraction team's been ambushed. They're under heavy fire, and we've lost contact with the medical unit transporting bin Laden." The commander's heart pounded in his chest as he whirled around, barking orders to his agents. "Scramble the tactical teams. Seal off the area. We can't let bin Laden escape." But even as the Mossad mobilized its forces, the commander knew that they were already too late. Bin Laden had orchestrated this entire charade, luring them in with the promise of his capture, only to spring his true trap at the last moment. The mole, the traitor in their midst, had struck, and the consequences would be catastrophic. In the hours and days that followed, the full scale of the disaster unfolded. The extraction team had been decimated, the medical transport hijacked, and bin Laden had vanished into the night, his freedom secured by the very agency sworn to bring him to justice. The fallout was swift and devastating. Heads rolled within the Mossad, and the agency's reputation was shattered, its intelligence-gathering capabilities called into question. Across the world, leaders scrambled to shore up their defenses, bracing for the inevitable repercussions of bin Laden's escape. And then the blows began to fall. In rapid succession, Al-Qaeda carried out a series of devastating attacks, striking from London to Tel Aviv, from Madrid to Jakarta. The death toll soared, and the global community found itself paralyzed, powerless to stop the onslaught. It was a nightmare scenario, one that the Mossad had spent years trying to prevent.
Bin Laden, emboldened by his triumph, had emerged stronger than ever, his network of extremists growing exponentially as he rallied the disaffected and the disenfranchised to his cause. The reverberations were felt for years, even decades, as the world grappled with the fallout of the Mossad's failed operation. Trust between nations eroded, intelligence sharing became fraught with suspicion, and the global war on terror descended into a quagmire of shifting alliances and shifting battlegrounds. For the Mossad, the failure was a stain that would never truly be erased. The agency had come so close to apprehending the most wanted man in the world, only to have their victory snatched away by a treacherous mole, a betrayal that shook the very foundations of the organization. In the end, bin Laden's escape would prove to be a pivotal moment in history, a turning point that reshaped the geopolitical landscape and ushered in a new era of global instability and heightened tensions. The consequences of that fateful day would echo through the ages, a stark reminder that even the most well-laid plans can be undone by the machinations of a single, determined adversary.